we are lucky to have a presentation on the building information modeling, and that's going to be presented to us by the ARGO design team. They're going to be joining us this evening to share with us some information, which I'm sure everyone who's here is keen on listening to and learning something new that has certainly taken the industry, as it were, by storm. The format for this evening, we'll have a 30 to 40 minute presentation. Then we'll have a 20 to 30 minute question and answer segment, and we would hope to be wrapped up around 7:30, unless there are lots of questions and our guests are kind enough to permit a bit more questioning. But that's the general format we're working toward. Just a reminder that this is a continuing professional development event, and we ask that for those of you who are members of professional bodies, if you're looking to claim points for this evening's seminar, which is worth 2 CPD points, we just ask you to reach out to our BAPE office, and we will share those details at the end of the presentation. So you'll see the email address, telephone numbers, etc., that you can reach out to Stacy in the office. So just a brief introduction this evening of the topic that we'll be looking at. Building information modeling, or BIM as it's popularly known, represents the process of development and use of a computer-generated model to simulate the planning, design, construction, and operation of a facility. The resulting model, building information model, is a data-rich, object-oriented, intelligent, and parametric digital representation of the facility, from which views and data appropriate to various users' needs can be extracted and analyzed to generate information that can be used to make decisions and to improve the process of delivering the facility. That's taken from a paper called Building Information Modeling, Benefits, Risk, and Challenges. That was done by Azhar, Hein, and Sketo, and they were members of the School of Building Science in Auburn University, Auburn, Alabama. So that's just a general idea of what BIM is. It would have been introduced in the as far back as the 1970s in the UK, and it has certainly come a long way since then with the use of computers and computer graphics and etc. It certainly has evolved over time. And we are very fortunate this evening to have in our presenters active studio that is using this technology throughout the Caribbean and further afield, because their offices are not only in the Caribbean. I'll just do a brief introduction of this afternoon's presenters. ARGO Development Studio was founded by its managing director, Mr. David Campion. David was an associate director of one of Ireland's most successful firms of architects, Mola, and delivered several award-winning projects in over 12 years with the firm. And I'm reading, this is some information that was taken from their website. So for the presenters, if it sounds familiar, you would understand why. David has lectured and tutored at the School of Architecture, DIT in Ireland, and was a member of a task group assembled by the Royal Institute of Architects Ireland to establish educational standards for professional practice. ARGO is an international award-winning architectural practice specializing in a design and construction process called Building Information Modeling, BIM. This process allows ARGO to design, cost, and construct more intelligent and resilient buildings in a 3D virtual environment, achieving savings of up to 20% over conventional 2D delivery. They offer a 17-hour workday as standard by availing of a 7-hour time zone overlap by splitting their teams between the offices in Barbados, Dominica, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Jamaica, and Europe, and several project offices throughout the Caribbean. ARGO provides efficient expertise, cost certainty, on-time delivery, and value for money to its clients. ARGO safeguards the project journey from concept to completion through strong leadership. The the strength and talent of the teams ARGO assemble, position it at the forefront of design and development on a global scale. So that's just a bit about our evening's presenters, and they asked that we stress it was very much going to be a team event, as it were. So I'll ask the presenters just to introduce themselves as they come on screen this evening. Just some general housekeeping rules to everyone else. I would ask that you would maintain the mute on your mic during the process, and when we come to the question and answer segment, simply indicate, you can either do the raise hand if you're familiar with the Zoom format, if you want to ask a question, or if you're a bit camera shy, you can place your question in the chat, and I'll be happy to share it with our guests so that they can answer the question for you. So without further ado, I would just like to introduce the ARGO team. Over to you guys.
Okay, thanks very much for the introduction and the general overview of building information modeling. You guys can hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Yes, we can, David. Great. Thank you very much.
Thanks. So, yeah, my name is David Campion, for those who don't know me, founder and managing director of ARGO. The team that's joining me tonight is Marsha Cadogan, who's our studio leader here in Barbados. Marsha will say hi in a second. Adam Campbell, who's director of our Dublin office, and Andrina, who's also joined from the Dublin office quite late in Dublin. So we also have Rolisa Samuel, who's on from our St. Vincent office, and Rolisa is our marketing and business development manager. She'll do the general introduction. So without further ado, I think we'll jump into our presentation, and we'll start maybe with Rolisa for the introduction, and then Andrina Castro will talk probably at the end in the Q&A, along with Adam Campbell, and Marsha Cadogan will lead us through a general introduction to BIM as a process, how ARGO implements BIM, and the software we use to do so. And then Rolisa will start by just giving a little bit of context about ARGO and its work in the Caribbean. We'll then finish actually by giving you a little spin through one of our buildings that shows a federated model with architecture, MEP, and civil and structural fully integrated. So that's it. We're conscious of everybody's so busy. It's 6:10, and we're conscious of the 40 minutes and then some time for Q&A. So we'll respect that. Thank you.
All right, so good evening to everyone, and it's a pleasure being here with all of you. Vincent has made my job a little bit easier because he did go through some of the information already. So it will be a relatively quick run through as an introduction to Aggo. All right, so Aggo Development Studio is an international award-winning architectural practice specializing in the design and construction process called building information modeling, which we're all here to talk a little bit more about today. Now, what this process does is that it allows us as Aggo to design, cost, and construct more intelligent and resilient buildings in a 3D virtual environment, achieving savings of up to 20% over conventional 2D delivery. Now, one of the things about Aggo is that we offer, and Mashi could probably click to the next slide, we offer a 17-hour workday as standard by availing of a 7-hour time zone difference. We currently have offices in Barbados, Dominica, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Jamaica, as well as Europe. However, we do have a staff of our team of 45 members, and they're based in 14 different countries. So we have services that are, we offer 2 different types of services, and we have 2 different centers of different types of centers. So our services include architectural as well as development. And we have the Center for Technical Expertise, and under that, we have listed the BIM services as well as design development. Now, we recently launched the Climate Intelligence Unit, and what this does It's a climate positive change, or it's focused on climate positive change in line with the Paris Agreement. Now, our CIU team can provide solutions to clients on climate adaptive solutions to cost and construct smart, resilient, energy efficient, and environmentally friendly structures. Now, I know that we're probably saying a lot within these slides, but more information can actually be obtained on our website. All right, so Vincent, Vincent didn't mention this, but we do have projects, or we have done extensive projects in various sectors. And these sectors include, and Masha could probably just go through as I speak. So we have undertaken projects in different sectors, including mixed use, retail, hospitality and leisure, healthcare, transport and infrastructure, education, as well as residential, and conservation and heritage. All right, so we have been in the news quite frequently, as well as our own publications. So these are some recent publications in which our managing director has been featured, as well as other team members. All right, so this just gives a perspective on the work that Aggo has undertaken throughout our 8+ years of existence. And apart from actual work that we've done, we are also quite focused on corporate social responsibility. So this is just one of the examples of Aggo as a team giving back to, well, that middle photo, students within St. Vincent and the Grenadines. All right, and that concludes my part. So as I indicated, more information about Aggo Development Studio can be obtained from our website. So I hand you over now to Masha and David for the continuation of this presentation.
Good day, everyone. I am Masha Ann Cadogan, and I'm the studio leader here at Aggo Development Studio. And today I'll be taking you through Aggo's project experience through BIM and digital construction through the BIM process. So we have a workflow that is quite similar to the AEC workflow, but in BIM we have a program in phase 1. We take part in planning, our definition of program and concept design. Then we move on to design, where we go into design development, analysis, and creation of documentation for construction. Then fabrication in phase 3, where we look into 4D and 5D scheduling, our construction and logistics required for construction, and then into phase 4, operations and maintenance, and how we can utilize BIM within renovations and, if necessary, demolition. So the BIM is a collaborative approach. You take into consideration not just one service, but also the additional professional services such as MEP and structural. And it is linked or connected to a common data environment. And this allows you to remove the challenges that are often associated with independent information within a silo. So there are multiple benefits, and the benefits of BIM for clients is that it allows you to reduce timelines and costs, project risk, and material waste. Along with it improves planning and project outcomes. And BIM helps us to automate that construction process, to manage documents better, reduce coordination issues before they get to site, minimize those change orders that tend to pop up, optimize that design, improve the cost predictability and scheduling, and there are fewer design and construction errors when you can simulate not just the construction and scheduling, but also analysis and simulation of solar heating, cooling, passive ventilation, and carbon footprint. You can also do disaster and emergency simulation, and all these things help you to achieve savings of approximately 20% over a conventional or traditional delivery in construction. So there are multiple levels within the BIM process. It's important to understand that it is not simply a software, but a process of collaboration. And in level 0, it's simply 2D or lines and text within a CAD environment. In level 1, people are working independently through a combination of 2D and 3D and sharing at a one drop or independent collaborative portion of things. In level 2, all persons are working on independent models, but they're sharing that information through a common data environment. And within level 3, everyone is working on a same live model. And in this case, infrastructure is important. It's important that all persons are working within the same level of software and within the same common data environment. There are multiple dimensions of BIM. We mentioned there's 1D, 2D, and then 3D, where these models take shape. 4D, where we take into consideration scheduling and clash detection, and 5D, estimation and costing and takeoff. 6D, we take a look at sustainability and analysis, and 7D, it's facility management and the applications of after that building is built. So 4D and clash detection and sequencing, I'll take you through what that means for us. Clash detection is the detection of problems that can occur between the different systems, structural, MEP, and architectural. Construction sequencing and phasing simulations. BIM allows you to actually sequence installations and phasing for optimal construction. Scheduling and a detailed installation simulation can also be done through Autodesk Navisworks. I'm going to take you through a video here of the Bermuda Airport. So this is a Navisworks model, which is a program that we use to merge each discipline of the model and allows us to navigate and interrogate and analyze the building as a whole before ever getting to site. So this model that you see here, as we cut the section, you'll see different services within that model. And this allows us to utilize the software to perform clashes. So taking a look at the model, you have all the MEP items integrated with the structural elements. Okay. Trying to take you back here. Oops. So these are a few examples of clash detection that's often done with Navisworks. So on one of our projects in Bermuda, we're able to conduct over 120 individual clashes. These clashes were coordinated between MEP systems, fire safety systems, structural steel framing and architectural elements, and baggage handling systems. Throughout the coordination process, over 20,000 clashes were found and detected, resulting in a significant reduction in change orders on site and errors detailed in the design documents. Through BIM coordination, we were able to facilitate the full off-site production of the baggage handling system remotely in New Zealand. And this system was then lifted and placed on site in prefabricated assemblies and secured to the structure. Not a single component had to be reordered or modified on site due to this clash detection that was performed. Taking a look at these images here, we can see that through BIM, exactly what is modeled is exactly what is implemented on site. This slide gives you an idea as to the steel structure that was being implemented. And as mentioned in Navisworks, you're able to actually schedule the phasing that's required for sequencing and installation on site. All right. I unfortunately lose it again. These are the final images of the LF Wade Bermuda International Airport at completion. All right, 5D, cost estimation and quantity takeoff. As mentioned, we're able to do cost analysis and planning and quantity takeoffs and integrating software, QS software such as CostX. And because every element or building component of equipment is physically modeled, you're able to take accurate quantity takeoffs and accurate measurements. For 6D environmental design and sustainability, you're able to perform energy analysis and sustainable element tracking. You're able to do typical internal temperature calculations, natural lux levels and calculations, and identifying optimal positioning of buildings for PV panels. In the case of natural disasters, you're able to utilize BIM to do assessment on damage and hurricane load, simulate training for emergency conditions, and develop worst case scenarios for evacuations, comparing and contrasting before and after conditions of a building after disaster. The software can be used to do wind loading simulations, flooding simulations, evacuation procedures and recommendations, and also to test the seismic activity of a multi-story structure during the design phase. Within 7D, the facilities management portion of things come into play with BIM. And you're able to use the BIM model as an as-built, implement strategies and for maintenance and renovation planning, and integrate it within the BMS system, which was done within the LF Wade or the Bermuda project that ARGO delivered. Here you're able, with BIM, you're able to create virtual reality maintenance demos, do live chats for technical support with the BIM model, and integrating it with as a virtual reality system into your as-built building. Also linking it to the building management system and automated controls through your operation maintenance manuals, and perform annual energy performance assessments. Taking a look at how it's implemented in virtual reality, I'll play this short video where it takes you to how it's implemented. There's an issue of a leaking pipe, and the maintenance guy comes in, he takes a look, places his goggles on, and he's able to look at the building with the BIM model integrated into it to see where the valves of the pipework are, therefore reducing the time to actually look and being clear cut as to where this is implemented or allows you to take them off. If we speed along the video a bit more, you can actually conduct assessments through virtual reality also by having someone, a specialist person, come in and give instructions to the maintenance guy on how to work the controls or electrical conditions that are giving trouble. All right. Moving on, we're here to give you an idea as to also the cost of software that is utilized. For Revit and Navisworks and AutoCAD, AEC collection is purchased through a license that costs up to $3,100 USD per annum per license. In order to review or to have that common data environment, BIM 360 Doc is the program that we utilize, and it's a collaborative program or common data environment that we use for cloud-based information sharing. And it allows you to access that information globally, review models, and to share any updates or have the latest or most up-to-date drawings and models on that common data environment. This can run you up to $625 per seat or 10 seats at $4,400 US per annum. You are to utilize an authorized Autodesk reseller, and this person is located in Port of Spain, Trinidad. Jumping on to some of the projects that we have recently worked on or completed through BIM. Or at International Motors in Tortola, the steel structure of that car dealership was implemented utilizing BIM through Tekla structures. These are visuals of the BIM model and then the steel structures being erected on site. And this is the finished product of Tortola. Moving on to Real Auto St. Martin, the steel design was done with Tekla structures and BIM, and the architectural model and erected on site. If you could notice, a member of your fraternity, Craig Archer, is here. He aided ARGO in delivering Real Auto St. Martin. And these are the final visuals of it. Concept design of Williams Tower was done through BIM for a project here in Barbados. This model was built through BIM. And you're able to, with this model, you're able to pull all your necessary 2D information for construction with this concept, with your model built for construction, but can be done through concept design from concept all the way to construction. ARGO in Dublin, these are a few projects highlighted here. We were asked to take these models, this 2D information or plans that were given to us from planning stage to implement and create construction models for Cornell's Court, about 420,000 square feet, and for Cherrywood Development, 470,000 square feet in Ireland. These are not just residential buildings, but also commercial units located on the ground floor. In Secret Bay, Dominica, a little closer to home here in Barbados, we have the Menagerie building, which was built in BIM, and we utilize the BIM model to create 3D visuals. This is where it's at currently in construction on site. But here we're also able to utilize the BIM models of the structure and the MEP systems to run clash detection and coordinate with consultants on these clashes. At home here in Barbados, we're working on the Apes Hill project. This is one of the smaller units that we have at a small bar. But here you can see we have the structural model, the MEP model, and the cladding and architectural model, which we combine to create a federated model for clash detection and construction. We're utilizing this model to create a system build product that can be built overseas and installed on site. Also the Performance Center, which is a specialist building that would allow you to improve your golf swing. And here this model is built in BIM, and we utilize the Tekla models from the structural supplier, and we run clashes with MEP. All these buildings are being loaded onto BIM 360 for collaboration and coordination with all subconsultants. The guard huts, I'm going to use this opportunity to take you guys on a little tour of BIM 360 and what this model looks like when we do review it and put it together. So this is the model currently built in BIM, uploaded to BIM 360. What this allows you to do is review the model and also simply cut sections and take a look at exactly what is happening in between those walls. Here you can see the structural elements and also the MEP elements of the model. Here it allows you to take a look around and even enter the building as you would need to. All right, back to our presentation. We're also working on a master plan of 20 villas for the Apes Hill development. And with that, with this model, we're able to coordinate with the infrastructure team and civils team to create the roadways necessary for accessing each villa. And we're able to utilize these models to create renders and animation videos, which I'll give you a quick view of our most recent model. So this model is developed, as mentioned, with BIM, and we're able to add layers of information, architectural information, and interior design elements. This is often used to share this information with the client for sign-off, and also for collaboration with our interior designers and the architectural team. This is often used as a marketing tool by the client and also as a to help sell and market these villas to clients. With BIM, you're able to get into quite a bit of detail. This is a digital twin, or ideally digital construction, happening before you can implement on site. We create options and also variety in design. And reiterating that each item is modeled and therefore available for quantity takeoffs as required. So this is not just helpful for construction, but also to our interior designers also. All right. Taking you back to our presentation now. We recently were commissioned as executive architects for the Mandarin Oriental Hotel in Grand Cayman to take them through the BIM processes of 4, 5, 6, and 7. So that will be our next great task in BIM. How do we keep ourselves up to date with training and upskilling of our staff? Given the current challenges, we try to run classes or upskilling every Monday, and we need to be ahead of the changes that tend to come with the BIM software. And we try to have collaborative and interactive courses and workshops with our experts. So weekly training sessions. We also have a BIM chat room where if you're experiencing challenges, you can drop our experts and also the technologists within that chat room to help you troubleshoot any problems. And that's it for us. Thank you.
Okay, so Marcia, thanks very much for that very informative presentation. Is there anyone else presenting from your team before we move into questions and answers?
No, that would be it. I will utilize the rest of the team to help you guys answer any questions that you may have.
Sorry, I was there enjoying the flying through of all these projects and thinking in my mind, what a wonderful product this certainly is, that you're able to look and see all of these clashes before they actually occur on site.
Yeah.
That almost seems like magic. So thank you very much for that very informative introduction and session pertaining to BIM. Thank you for sharing with us some of your ongoing and future projects that will be coming online. Certainly, it is certainly for me, it is intriguing to see technology used in such a manner. So we come to the exciting part of this evening where we get to engage with these professionals and to ask questions pertaining to BIM. And this is the part where we would encourage all who are gathered here, please utilize this session to gain some information. This is not time to be shy. This is the time to try and gain some knowledge. So I see we have first question up. So I'm going to, it says, how is this useful for existing buildings as opposed to new buildings? So I'm not sure who from your team may want to take that first question.
Thanks, Vincent. Adam, would you like to take that one?
Good afternoon all, or good evening all. Yes, I suppose we can go into an existing building and create what is called a point cloud. So it's a laser. It's basically a laser survey which will take points, thousands, hundreds of thousands of points from within inside the building. That can then be brought back into BIM software, and which will automatically combine those points to form an existing as-built model. So you can fairly quickly, I suppose, we wouldn't do it in-house. We are surveyors and stuff in Ireland that would have the surveying technology and would return an existing as-built model, which would be, you know, accurate to 1 or 2 millimeters. So it is it's not cheap. It's easier to do on a new build, a nice open field site. But it certainly can be used and implemented in going forward.
Fantastic. So basically, Adam, this is Adam that is speaking to us from Ireland at present.
Yes, it is.
So Adam, we just want to really thank you for sacrificing your time to join us here in the sunny Caribbean. I know it's probably a bit late there, but thanks very much for joining us here through the wonders of technology. We're able to reach
Absolutely.
across the pond, as it were. So thank you. The as-built process, you said it, so basically is this a machine or a device you would set up as a scanner within the building which would take these points digitally?
Exactly. So you'd place it in each room. So you'd have someone, you'd place it in the room, you'd leave the room, and it'll shoot out tens of thousands of lasers to numerous points within the room. It'll store each of those points when obviously the laser bounces back to the machine, and then it will give a X, Y, and Z coordinate for each. It can then be brought into BIM software, and the BIM software will link each of these points to form very detailed room layouts. So you can get cornicing details and coving details in the plasterwork to like 1 or 2 mil. So there are better scanners than and worse ones. So the very high end ones will give you almost an immaculate room as for what's in it, exactly what's in it.
Fantastic.
Now,
So,
the only thing I would say is that it doesn't give you, obviously, you then have to come along and apply materiality and actual build up to it. It's just giving you a massing model.
okay, fantastic, great. Now, something that was mentioned until I see some questions start to come up. Savings of over 20% over conventional construction process. David, are you still there? Can you perhaps, you've worked in the Caribbean for several years now, and you obviously would be familiar with the traditional process versus the BIM process. And can you give us some idea of what that transition has been like for you? You obviously would have experienced both, and just basically sell us on this new technology and how we are able to obtain these savings.
Sure. So, the industry refers to savings of up to 20%. And I think back in 2016, there was a report issued by the British government where a number of projects, because of the new requirement for all government-funded projects to be through BIM, and they've recorded the journey of projects through to delivery, and they'd identified that the medium of savings over conventional processes was 13%. And then it's reported that those savings can be up to 20%. But I suppose it's about everything that Marcia took us through is about the efficiency that this technology and these processes can bring. So we talked about the airport and the fact that when ARGO was engaged to start on Bermuda International Airport, the only thing available was two-dimensional information from the architect, from the MEP engineer, from civil and structural, and a number of other sub-consultants. And once we built a forced, fully integrated model where we merged all disciplines, there was over 40,000 clashes. Now, had the developer who engaged us, had he gone to site with those inefficiencies, they estimated it could have cost them $500,000 alone. And so it easily justified our fee to bring us on board to take that 40,000. Within 3 months, we had 40,000 clashes down to 400. Granted, it took us another 3 or 4 months to iron out those, which were more serious clashes, which meant an element of redesign from civil and structural and MEP and, architecture at times. So that's where I got to see it firsthand by the developer sharing the cost savings with us. So, is it 13%, is it 20%? It depends how much inefficiency you capture and how early you capture it. Obviously, the ideal scenario is that this is all captured, all the efficiencies are captured and resolved before the building ever gets to site. That's the holy grail of BIM, where you can maximize the benefit of it.
Fantastic. Thanks for that, David. Thanks very much. All right, we've got a couple questions up in the chat. So I'll read the first one. How did you get contractors and subcontractors to use the model? And what type of quality control measures are required to ensure what is built is what is designed? So Craig, since you are project manager for that project in St. Martin and you've got actual experience dealing with subcontractors, probably you could give us some indication from a real life perspective.
I think it might be more appropriate for David to chip in here, because obviously it's important from the back end to get the buy-in when you're engaging the various suppliers or whatever. Certainly for the particular supplier, steel structural supplier that was used in both St. Martin and Tortola was fully on board with the BIM compliant, so that aided us considerably. And the MEP consultants that we used in St. Martin, which is an outfit out of Trinidad, Stages Consultancy, they were BIM savvy and BIM compliant as well. But David, you want to add to that?
Yeah, great question, by the way. And yeah, it's a very interesting. I'm glad you mentioned St. Martin, Vincent, because that was an interesting learning curve, because, you know, we're creatures of habit. We don't like change, you know, and we're trying to introduce this new way of doing things. And of course, Craig's experience in industry, and then introducing the concept of BIM to Craig, which is new to Craig at the time. But it was amazing watching Craig negotiate a model in BIM 360 and start to appreciate the benefits of it. Now, it's a very difficult process and software. There's a lot of education there to become comfortable. But as Marcia mentioned earlier, and she demonstrated through BIM 360, which is the host platform, that you can very easily open these models, cut sections through them, and that's not very difficult to do. So you're able to engage with the process, which is what Craig did at St. Martin, although he hadn't got formal BIM training or Revit certification. Now, when it came to engaging with the industry, subcontractors, as Craig mentioned, some were proficient. The MEP guys stages where we worked with the supplier out of Europe, who was an advocate of BIM themselves. They realised the efficiencies that could be gained because they were on a contract that was design build. So they knew it was very much in their interest to make sure that the architecture in the MEP was fully resolved and coordinated with their steel structure that was going to be manufactured in Europe and shipped across and assembled. Now, we did then have some subcontractors who weren't BIM savvy and weren't really interested in upskilling. And so that challenge was a difficult one, but we just had to compromise with them and set out points for them and try to encourage them through the process. So there is a big learning curve there, steep learning curve, and not everybody's going to be up for it. We try to, any new projects, we try to identify engineers, MEP engineers, who are BIM capable, because, you know, you mentioned yourself, Vincent, that it's certainly a project, digital construction is certainly it's here and it's not going away, and it's the future of the industry. So you know, I think we've all got to sort of jump on board gradually and then ultimately become competent. So that's sort of our experience in St. Martin.
think it's important to note maybe that just that we don't only go to, sorry, it's Adam Campbell here. It's not only going to people who are BIM savvy and BIM capable, but it's those willing to adapt and those willing to try and educate themselves to those willing to bring it into their office where it may not be before. So it's that everyone's just taking a stepping stone towards this process. So it's those that we're interested in engaging with.
Fantastic. Thank you for that, guys. Okay, we have a couple of questions. Is there a minimum project size or cost that is needed to make BIM cost effective?
I would say yes. I mean, it's an expensive software for everyone to get on board with and everyone to have. Some people just won't. There's obviously a little bit more in relation to fees and stuff like that from the designer to cover those costs, and to have the people who are using it are probably might be they're in demand, so they might be higher paid. So there's obviously more cost from the design point of view. Someone looking to build a small extension to their house may not see the benefit of it. Obviously, there will be some benefits in relation to coordination and stuff like that. But if it's not generally a larger, it doesn't have to be a multi-story building or anything, but something on a commercial side, size where you have MEP systems, not just plumbing and electrics that you'd have in a domestic situation. So I don't know the exact size. I don't know where the balance is that would make us go, yes, we're going to go with on this project, but not on this project. But I think it's very much down to the client. I think we'll always try and implement it, because even if you gain 10% of the benefit of having it, if the client is willing to go down that route for the certainty of even just time and program and things happening as they should on site, even if you only use 10% of the benefits of that can come out of BIM, it's an exercise worthwhile.
Thanks for that, Adam. Okay, next question up. Says this one is from Justin Leslie. Good evening, everyone. Excellent presentation. In the construction phase, can BIM connect to project management software to update project progress?
Yeah, so I think what we showed during Marsha's presentation, and she looked at the different dimensions of BIM, and we looked at 4, which was scheduling, dimension 4, and then on to 5. And we also ran a simulation of the steel being installed in sections and in bays. So that was actually requested by the project manager, so that when we're all accustomed to project meetings and the project manager pulls up on screen his Microsoft project document, and sometimes he can lose the room, so to speak, with all those boxes and digits and lines and bar charts. And so what the project manager asked us to do at the international airport was to do simulations to tie in with his program. So not only did he produce the traditional Excel document or project management document, Microsoft project, but he'd also at the same time ask us to run the simulation to say, okay guys, here's what we're going to accomplish this week. And he'd get us to run beams going in, metal deck going on, concrete being poured for bays 1 to 6. And so he really tried to fully utilize the advantage of simulating progress over the next week to help bring the project more, make it more easier for his team to understand physically what they must accomplish that week.
Fantastic. Okay, we've got 2 similar questions, one from Justin Leslie and the other from Romario Farrell. And basically, the question centers how long does it take to become BIM competent? And then the other one is, where can I learn and become qualified in BIM technology, whether that's online training or in Barbados? So can I ask Marsha Ann to take that one? Yes, I caught you there.
So we learned, we participate in the online training sessions that are facilitated by our BIM team in Dublin. And they walk us through their technical expertise at the moment. Online training, of course, there's YouTube. That you can definitely learn from, but DIT offers an online program that you can, Dublin Institute of Technology, they offer BSc that's online based, and there are a few others in the UK that offer online programs. We also utilize LinkedIn Learning that offers courses that allow you to take certification exams to become BIM competent.
Fantastic. So David and Adam, can I ask you, could you give us a snapshot of what the introduction of BIM looked like in Ireland and the UK, where I assume both of you have work experience, and how that translate to what is currently ongoing in the Caribbean? How do the two experiences differ? And in terms of the Irish market, how long did it really take to, as it were, settle in there for persons ready to pick it up and run with it?
Adam, if you want to give some background and context to the Irish scene, I can then talk to our journey here.
Yeah, so I suppose I first came across it when I was in college, thankfully, because it wasn't, when I started in college, it was just CAD and 2D, and by the time I was finishing it, they were implementing. The last 2 years, maybe we're training people up in Revit. When I came out, some of the larger practices were using it for multinationals coming to build offices and stuff in Ireland. Ireland is a hub in Europe, I suppose, because it's so close to the States. We get a lot of like the Googles, Facebooks, all these have their headquarters based, LinkedIn have headquarters based in Dublin. So these people coming from America, coming from Canada, they were well used to, I think, a Revit at this point. Sorry, Revit, I say Revit, BIM. And so they were looking for it, and it was those people putting pressure on local architects that really started to drive it. And then I suppose people not only saw the benefits from a financial point of view and from a client point of view, but obviously from a sustainable point of view as well. So it then became kind of common practice, you know, there's a considerable waste reduction on a building site when things can be modeled in through BIM. So there's very much a lean on sustainability there as well. And then we kind of started, as we tend to do in Ireland, or do a lot, we kind of followed the UK. They implemented a requirement for all public buildings to be constructed and developed through BIM. We followed on about 2 years after that, so maybe around 2014, 2015 maybe it was. So it was a long journey, and it's still kind of ongoing in Ireland. We get a lot of work from all sized practices. We subcontract out BIM technologists and architectural technologists to larger practices who need help or assistance for a particular project. So there's still a lot of people who are trying to catch up on it, and you know, some of the bigger practices have brought in BIM managers to try and implement it across their projects. So it's definitely gained traction over the last 5-6 years. Everyone has a team nearly now, an in-house team, and whether they've got capacity to run it through all their projects or not, everyone's somewhat familiar with it. But it's not fully there, and I say that, like, I'm actually a lecturer in Bolton in DIT, which is currently TU Dublin. It's changed to TU Dublin if you are looking for the courses online, and I would still be somewhat. I still think there is a need for some 2D as well, because there are people are coming out of college. There are still some things, some practices that need. Or that haven't quite, you know, bought into the concept of BIM yet. So it is. So I think it's not fully there, but I'd say within the next couple of years, I think we'll be, fully BIM in Dublin, in Ireland.
Fantastic. So David, do you want to give us a snapshot into the Caribbean experience?
Sure. So I think, you know, in the industry, it's interesting because even in Ireland, it's like, where does the desire for change come from? And when main contractors are starting to lead the charge on BIM in Ireland, which they are, as Adam said, they're building their own BIM units. And you know that it's all about cost savings and being able to deliver projects more competitively. And you're talking about, you know, million euro projects, €500 million project. You can imagine the saving that 13% would bring to a contractor. So they've recognized the efficiencies, and actually contractors and developers are leading the charge on BIM. Architectural practices are embracing it, as are engineering practices, because they can see the industry shift. And also the discerning client, as Adam said, these big tech clients coming into Dublin to set up their European headquarters, they see it as the basic requirement because of all the advantages it brings to the client. And of course, we know now that, you know, the buzz in industry is, you know, a climate positive response through architecture and engineering. So we're compelled as industry professionals to be focused on efficiency of delivery, sustainability, and so we can only do that through intelligent analysis. And as Marcia demonstrated earlier, that's where BIM comes in, that ability to intelligently analyze building performance, building energy use. So where does the journey in the Caribbean, you know, obviously ARGO's DNA is an architectural practice specializing in BIM. So we're here because we saw an opening. We saw that the Caribbean needs a practice that specializes in BIM. And so we're probably one of a few, but I think everybody is starting to realize that, you know, as an industry, we need to embrace this kind of technology. We look at some of the challenges in delivering projects in the Caribbean, and, you know, the advantages that everything from panelization, system build, modularization, you know, taking parts of buildings into factory conditions in the Caribbean, being able to deliver modules to site. Particularly the likes of COVID has taught us that, you know, if you're relying on a massive workforce and something like COVID hits, the project gets shut down. If that same project was being fabricated in factories in the Caribbean, in Barbados or elsewhere, that specialized in taking BIM models through AI to produce modules and components and panels that actually get delivered to site and assembled to deliver buildings, then you're reducing your workforce. Well, not so much reducing it, but you're repositioning it into controlled factory environments, and so that helps us deliver. We're less exposed to the risk of hurricane because it's all factory. A lot of it is factory assembly. So I think that's where the industry is going. It's going to, as Adam said, there's a lot of upskilling for everybody. ARGO is still upskilling, and we've, you know, we're constantly, as Marcia mentioned, we've weekly sessions to make sure we're on top of what's the latest thinking, what's the latest add-ons to BIM. But it's very much part of the future for ARGO.
Thanks very much for that. Okay, we've got a couple of questions in the chat, so I'll start with this one from Craig. Would ARGO be willing to work with the Barbados Association of Professional Engineers and the Barbados Institute of Architects to lobby government to try to require BIM to be used on major public sector projects in the future? Now, before you answer there, David, what was interesting to me just now was that Adam said that in Ireland that BIM basically is being implemented for all public sector projects, which I thought was quite interesting. Obviously, one would think government has an interest in trying to produce the most efficient process of building something and certainly saving money. So what is your reply to Craig's question, David?
Well, straight away, the answer is yes, of course. But we probably need to step back and look at education as well, because, you know, sustainable approach to employment for ARGO is to employ locally. And to employ locally, we need to make sure that, you know, there is BIM training available. Marsha mentioned that can easily be done now online. So we've got to upskill as an industry before we can encourage government to mandate BIM projects, I believe, because it wouldn't be fair on the industry if only a minority were experts in BIM. So I think we need to upskill the industry first. We do that in different ways. We mentioned the training, but also we send some of our staff to Europe to pursue degrees in architecture and masters in BIM, and then, you know, they'll return. One particular student who actually we took from BCC. She graduated from BCC. She worked as an intern and incredibly talented, and started to really get a strong comprehension of BIM and a passion for architecture. And so we created a scholarship within ARGO. We were able to fund her to go to Dublin to study in the same college that Adam's teaching in. So she'll return to Barbados and probably co-lead the studio, and she'll have all the credentials, including be Autodesk Revit sort of certified as well. So, you know, we're doing a number of things to help upskill our offices in the Caribbean. That's one initiative.
Fantastic.
We should note that we'd obviously be willing to help with people's education, and obviously it's in our interest as well to have as many disciplines and consultants using BIM locally in the Caribbean, and especially in Barbados. So obviously, if there is things we can do to help people or give people or direct people to certain information, we'd obviously be more than happy to do so.
Well, Samuel, you'll probably be inundated with calls tomorrow, so.
Well, let's
okay.
hope.
All right, we've got some other questions. This one is from Mr. Anthony Brooks. Could you respond to the fact that Revit is not the only BIM product on the market? And could you speak to the need for MEP to get on board with the process? Who wants to take that one?
I'll jump in here. I did want to reiterate that BIM is not a software. It's a process of collaboration and utilizing that collaboration on a platform to share information. So yes, that's correct. Revit is not the only software out there available. There are other software. There's ArchiCAD, there's ArchViz. There's other software out there that's available that gives BIM qualities, ability to save information, have elements that have information connected to them. There are different products out there. So it's collaboration between subconsultants and systems that allow you to create building information modeling and digital construction.
Fantastic.
And in regards to the need for MEP to get on board, yes, that's a great need. Clash detection is terribly helpful. We're going through a process right now where we've seen it in Bermuda. We've seen it in basically every project that we've worked on, how important that modeling process can be and add to that cost savings to have MEP personnel be on board in regards to BIM and modeling in 3 dimensions.
Okay, Marsha, I'm going to press you on that a bit more. Now, I just want to make sure I get the right pronunciation of your last name. Is it the Barbadian Cadogan, or is it Cadogan?
It's definitely the Vincentian Cadogan.
Okay, all right. Okay, just making sure I get that pronunciation correct.
Sure.
So that part of your presentation totally floored me. The 4D scheduling and clash detection sequencing. Yeah. And you mentioned, I think it was a figure of 20, was it 20,000 clashes detected for the airport project?
Yes.
I just found that absolutely fascinating. Can you give us an idea of or walk us through an idea of how this clash detection takes place? I mean,
Right.
what's involved, and just give us an idea, because speaking for someone who is a project manager on site, and we rely so heavily sometimes on our MEP colleagues to get those clash detections done before the stuff comes to site. Unfortunately, operating in a 2D environment is not always efficient. So
Yeah.
can you give us a sneak peek into how this clash detection works?
So we utilize a program called Navisworks, which brings together all the systems in one model, right? And it runs a script or what do you call a programming? It's a type of software that where you run an action to run clash detection, and wherever systems interfere with each other, or wherever they literally clash within that model, when that action is run, it's identified within a spreadsheet, and it's you as the architect to sift through all those clashes to see where MEP interacts with structural, and where structural interacts or literally clashes with the architectural models, whether it be gypsum, where voids aren't created, where it actually hits the surface, where it's partially in and partially out of a three-dimensional item. So it's a process that's run in Navisworks that spits out these clashes, and it takes you to portions within the model that detects where that clash happens. And I don't know if Adam wants to add a bit more.
I'll just give, and welcome Adam's thoughts as well, but just to give you a simple example, Vincent, to try and help us all appreciate where a clash might arise but not be expected from a two-dimensional review. So if an MEP designer is working in a two-dimensional section and he sees the I-beam depth and the decking that the concrete is going to be poured on above, and he sees the architect's intent for a ceiling level, and he figures, that's fine, I've got enough space for my duct in this section, so I'm going to occupy this space, and that will continue down until it has to turn into the corridor, etc. But what he doesn't see is, let's say, diagonal bracing between beams. And so in 3 dimensions, with the actual steel structure into greater detail, with the cross bracing identified, he then realizes, well, actually, 10 meters down, there's cross bracing. So I'm going to have to either drop the duct and establish a level consistently, or I'm going to have to drop the duct under the bracing. So that's a typical clash that we see as an example.
I might just follow up quickly. I suppose with that, and just referring to Anthony Brooks' comment as well, obviously we do refer to Revit and Autodesk a lot, but it's only because it's the software that we use, and we use it primarily because the colleges and universities here in Ireland all train in it because they get the software for free. So you can actually get trials of the Autodesk software for a month. And if you do try the Navisworks clash detection, it's quite easy to run a clash, but you will get numerous clashes up front. So when we talk about our initial clash getting 20,000, a lot of that will be, say, materials that should be touching. You can wipe those out kind of fairly quickly. Say you've got plasterboard, 2 junctions of plasterboard, and they're not cut perfectly. You'll get a couple of those clashes where they're just slightly off because Revit is so precise. So you can wipe those off and you can just cut it back to, say, structural steel and ductwork, or structural steel and pipes. And you can then rerun a clash just to identify clashes between those elements. So it's well worth actually doing and getting the trial version. And Bentley is obviously another as well, but it's well worth getting it just to try it yourself. And if you are entering into, say, an online training course with a university or school, you can get the software for free. There are educational versions of it which are free for while you're studying. So it's well worth getting and just working through. It's remarkable how much you pick up just by actually working through a model yourself.
Fantastic. Thank you very much for that. Okay, so question from Christopher Bellamy wanting to know, good evening, everyone. Could you give us an idea of the additional costs and time frame of becoming BIM certified? So Adam, since you do teach, can you perhaps shed some light on that?
Well, our BIM is taught through the architectural technology course, so it's not a full-time course. There are courses in it in Ireland, I'm sure everywhere, but ours, it's the tool used and process used, taught throughout our course. So I don't actually, off the top of my head, I know becoming BIM certified, you just have to sit, you have to be able to pass an Autodesk test and provide answers to their questions and show that you can use the software. You need to have done their course. I think certain college courses will, once you pass, you get certification because they'll have implemented a certain level of training into that course. The cost, I suppose, you'd have to look online. I don't know locally there, or in the Caribbean. I don't know what the training. I'm presuming there are some specific courses in and around the Caribbean. I just couldn't tell you how much they cost locally. We used to have an in-house architect who before joining us had a course in Dublin. I think that was about €2,400 to do a 16-week course. And it was also linked with Autodesk, so you were certified after that time frame. As long as you passed the course. So I think it's well worth looking into. It can be a bit of a cost, but it is worth it, I suppose. Once you get into the software and once you start using it, you'll find that things are quicker. Drafting is quicker. And obviously not just your own savings, but you will, as Marcia said, you'll get models out of it that can be used for renders, 3D imagery. So it's a great software and process and software.
Sorry, Adam, just to finish on that point then, Vincent, we did have preliminary discussions with Autodesk about establishing a training center in Barbados, actually. So if we felt there was a desire and enough interest, then we could reopen discussions and talk to Autodesk about, what that course could look like, how long, as Adam said, about 16 weeks, what would the cost be to the Caribbean. So that's something we'd be delighted to help establish in Barbados, and maybe Barbados becomes the HQ of BIM education, which is obviously appropriate given the name, for the Caribbean, and that everybody flies into Barbados to upskill in BIM. Why not?
Fantastic.
To upskill in BIM. In
BIM, yes. No pun intended, right? All right, fantastic. Thanks for that, David. Okay, so we've got some questions rolling in. And this one is from Craig, and I'm just going to add on to his question a little bit, and I'm going to, David, I guess you may jump in. How willing are Caribbean engineering firms, and along with engineering firms, I'm going to add suppliers to get on board with BIM on Caribbean projects, and what has been the ARGO experience?
Okay, so our project in Tortola that we shared earlier, we actually, that was a collaborative effort with Structural Systems here in Barbados. So they, as I'm sure most of our guests will know, that the Structural use Tekla, and Tekla it can be integrated into the BIM process easily. So the challenge was what happens after that, and our clash detection, and going back to Structural. There was a bit of a learning curve there for Structural, because they'd never really gone the full journey of BIM before. But I'd say they were willing, and they could see that this is where the industry is going. So they seem to express an interest in upskilling in that regard. So that was a reasonably positive experience. But I think suppliers, we haven't had the need on the projects we've worked on for suppliers to really get on board. When you think about suppliers in BIM, suppliers who are conscious of the industry shift are creating model versions of their products. So if you're selling furniture, you'll commission someone to create BIM families of your furniture that will go into the libraries, the BIM libraries. So architects and technologists and engineers can pull from that library your products. So that's where the buy-in would come from for suppliers. So let's say, for example, kitchen suppliers here in Barbados, really, if they're recognizing this industry shift, they'll be starting to create BIM models of their kitchens that they're offering, so that it's easier for Adam, Marsh, and the team to be able to say, I'd like to use this supplier, and let me go onto his library and pull off a model version of reality, so that we benefit from an intelligent component. So it might just be a carcass with a door, or a carcass with some drawers, but it actually comes into the model with actual attributes that then can feed into the quantity takeoff and feed into all the other analysis that we do on the building. So it helps us, but it also means that when the developer, the contractor gets hold of the model, it's easy for him to go to that supplier and say, well, your products are spec'd here. Let's just discuss cost and let's get on with it. So they should be able to see the massive benefits.
Fantastic. All right, we have a question from Dwayne Squires in the chat, and I want to answer a question before we go to Dwayne's question. You mentioned, I believe it is 7D, which is facilities management. With the, I think you would have indicated that the airport project that you would have shown us, the one in Bermuda, they are going to be utilizing the facilities management aspect of that. Can you give us an idea of how important you deem that aspect of the BIM technology to be, and how what in terms of the client, what did they deem to be from their end? How important do they deem it to be to have that facility available to them?
Adam, would you like to take that? You were more heavily involved in this aspect of Bermuda.
It was very, very, very tedious. Yes, I suppose. Look, it was very important to the client. It was something that they in very early discussions with us, when it was identified that it was a possibility that the building could be utilized for. One of their primary requirements was that they would have a live O&M manual, so that they could navigate the model. They could click on any item, be it a fixed piece of furniture, be it a door, a piece of sanitary ware. They could click on it. They could find out who the manufacturer was, who the supplier was, what the maintenance schedule was, how easy, lead times to get a new one if it was to be replaced. So we painstakingly created a model that was that integrated all the O&M information into it. The software that I suppose the operator currently used for their building management system didn't yet implement or integrate into BIM models, but they had said they were in the process of reviewing other softwares that would allow them. So we had to create a model that was also would be ready to implement, so that it kind of future-proofed them when they did decide to make the shift to a different software, that it could then be integrated, and they could run automated controls. They get warning lights when maintenance instructions and stuff like that, or when maintenance schedules, when alarms were going off. And so it really depends on the client, and it really there's no point in doing it unless they're going to either immediately or in the future use the model, because it is a time-consuming and quite expensive process to actually create a model. It's almost an exact replica. It's a digital twin because it has all that information in it. So you really need to use the model. It's no use in just handing it over to someone for it to sit in a drawer on a hard drive in a drawer somewhere. So massive benefits. And once we in that instance, we do training as well. So we send someone over to sit with their team and go through how to use the model, how to use Revit, and then how to access the information that's been placed in the model.
Fantastic. All right, and I have another question before we get to Dwayne's question as well. We also mentioned the 5D cost in estimation and quantity takeoffs, and I've noticed a friend of mine, Mr. Guppy, who's a quantity surveyor in this chat this evening. Can you tell us how important a tool that 5D is to the whole BIM process, David?
Yeah, so if you go right back to, you know, particularly for design build projects for clients that we've worked with, because like I just explained, we're actually bringing in, we're modeling real components with, you know, real values, dimensions, realistic dimensions. So they represent their actual physical, well, they're a twin of their actual physical counterpart. And that means that the model is full of all this intelligent information that QSs can easily benefit from. So, you know, straight away, you could calculate the tonnage of steel in the building, tonnage of concrete, or you know, cubic yardage of concrete, plasterboard, you know, gypsum, stud work, tiles is an easy one. But because it's, as I said, the intelligence of the components we're modeling, that all feeds into add-on programs like CostX, which interprets the data from the BIM model to make a QS's life easier. You know, this technology is not going to replace any of the key disciplines. It's not going to replace engineers or MEP engineers, civil and structural or architects or QSs. It's simply going to make us better at what we do because of the intelligent analysis and power that it's bringing to our ability.
Fantastic. Okay, we're going to go to Dwayne's question, and it says, coming in late and missed the presentation, so if already answered, please ignore. On ARGO's Caribbean projects, have the architectural, structural, and MEP firms all used BIM, or has ARGO taken the 2D inputs of others and translated them into BIM? And if the latter, does that make economic sense? So that's the first part of the question. Who wants to take a stab at that one?
Go ahead, Marcia.
Yeah, yes, we do have persons within the Caribbean who have utilized the BIM process. We have worked with some MEP engineers who have modeled their elements, and we've implemented them in Dominica. But there have been instances where we only had 2D information, and David could tell us if it made speak on the economic sense, but from a practical standpoint and from us trying to project manage and ensure that we run clashes properly, we have modeled 2D information to get stuff over the line. I think I see Rodrigo in the area. He models a lot of, he's one of our technologists, and he models a good bit of 2D information from subconsultants to ensure that we run clash detection and we have peace of mind that things are working correctly.
Yeah, the important thing there as well is, you know, our discipline and expertise is in the field of architecture. So where we've encountered projects where the MEP consultant is not BIM capable, then for the benefit of the project, we've offered to assist. And so we take the two-dimensional designs and we create 3D models, 3D BIM models for our MEP consultants. Obviously, there's quite a bit of back and forth because, again, there's some things we have to interpret. So there's a lot of questions because our guys aren't trained MEP engineers. Now, obviously, there's a PI consideration there as well. So we will model and then invite the MEP designer to do what Marcia did earlier, to the platform of BIM 360, to spin around and cut sections and make sure that we have accurately represented their design in 3 dimensions, and they'll have to sign off on that basis before we can then integrate that model into the architecture. We've done similar for engineering, civil and structural, but normally it's in relation to more basic elements like structural slabs, where we're only showing the massing of the slab and its profile from the engineer's drawings. Again, same process. The engineer will be invited to review our raft slab that we've interpreted from his two-dimensional information, and he'll need to say yes, that's an accurate 3D representation of our two-dimensional drawings. So that when we do have to do it, that's how we go about it.
Fantastic. The second part of the question, assuming the need for a common language, is there a need to first establish drafting standards that would apply to both 2D and 3D environments for all disciplines? So I'm not sure who wants to take that one.
Adam, I think that's for you.
So I suppose to be project specific, there will be a BIM execution plan, which will be developed from the employer's information requirements in EIR. They'll identify what they expect. The employer will identify, or client will identify what their expectations are from the BIM project. From that, we will prepare a BIM execution plan, which will identify not just drafting standards, but everything from naming standards for file naming. And it means that, which will be shared among all consultants. And it's not something that is meant to make the architect's life easier. It's meant to make everyone's life easier, including the client. At the end of the day, they'll be handed over. They'll be given a model that they want. They don't want each of our own individual standards stamped on it. You know, it's far easier that it's all coming in under one. So that's definitely from a project specific point of view. It would definitely be that there's a common language used by all disciplines. Whether it's 2D or 3D, it doesn't matter. I mean, I suppose the 2D information that we're taking and occasionally upgrading or not upgrading, creating a 3D element on behalf of that consultant, it could be from anything. Like we could model that up from a PDF. It wouldn't even have to be a DWG file, or so. The 2D element doesn't matter. I suppose it's when you get down to the 3D elements that you certainly need a common language, from everything from drafting to naming. So that at the end of the day, you have one very common, very easily identifiable product for that particular project.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Adam. So my last question this evening is going to be to Craig and to Marcia. So Marcia, from your point of view, I would like you to give us certainly your impression, your experience, having come into the BIM environment and what that was like for you. Mm-hmm. And Craig, as a seasoned construction professional, if you can likewise give us your how was that process for you? I'll be very interested if you can share with us before we close this evening.
So I'll start. My expertise with BIM was quite limited. In fact, I thought I knew more than I anticipated. I came in, I think my experience was with libraries in where I worked outside of Barbados and St. Vincent before. It was reviewing MEP models in 3 dimensions and implementing and doing coordination in 2D. Not so much as 3D representation and BIM. and also building models for rendering purposes. So I would basically say, if we take a look at the scale of implementation, we were at level 0, level 1, level 2. I was definitely at a level 1. It was a case of us utilizing that 2D information and creating 3D models for rendering purposes. Coming into working with ARGO, definitely a learning curve, a lot of collaboration and leaning on my colleagues, the guys in Dublin, to understand the processes and reviewing models more so. So utilizing BIM 360 to review models, look at the clash detection reports. Most of the technical modeling was done by the teams in Dublin, and that has been my experience so far.
Greg, you want to tell us about your experience?
Sure, thanks, Marsha. Yeah, when I joined ARGO back, I think it was in May 2018, I was specifically engaged to eventually travel to St. Martin to project manage the construction phase of the car dealership that was being designed. The big advantage I had, so my experience, project management experience prior to joining ARGO was I would usually be engaged by a client maybe 2 to 4 weeks before project execution was started. I wasn't really involved, didn't participate in the design process much, but I had about maybe 5 to 6 months in the ARGO studio, getting familiar with the design process, and saw the power of and the usefulness and the application of BIM and the 3D modeling. So I quickly realized and came to quickly appreciate the benefits of using the 3D technology, utilizing the power of BIM to detect clashes in the design stage. So that meant that when I eventually relocated to St. Martin for the about 16 months where I was there, I had a lot fewer challenges than I would have if we were operating in a traditional 2D environment. I'm really so definitely gung-ho, fully on board with all of the advantages, and basically really appreciative of working with the design team, looking over their shoulders, seeing what they could do, utilizing the power and of the software, getting technologists to do the cuts through the model, so we could see and examine the potential clashes of structure and architecture, of structure and services. Because that has always been, in my experience, the bugbear, for project managers like myself and like yourself, Vincent, having to deal with clashes on site, having to the headaches of having ductwork clashing with lights and so on, light fixtures. All of that is eliminated on the drawing board. The power and the advantages to the client are enormous, because ultimately, if they're in the 2D environment, when clashes are detected on site, typically a client will not even be aware that is not aware of the cost that is incurred to rectify that clash. on site. You know, it's just a variation is put through, and you know, it comes out of the contingency, and everybody goes away merrily rejoicing. But you know, the advantage of being able to identify and see a duct in 3D in the model up front, so that you know, the architect can say, well, that duct, that's not going to work. That architecturally, that just does not work for me. And so they can be moved, because I have been on sites where an architect has come to site and said, what is that grill doing there? You have to move it, you know, and that's a cost to the client. All of that can be done and should be done, you know, in the model before you even come to site, you know. So it was a learning experience, and I greatly appreciated and enjoyed my time with ARGO and in St. Martin.
Fantastic. Thank you for sharing, both Craig and Marcia. What you said there, Craig, really takes me back to when I was studying in Edinburgh, where we would have been exposed to the Egan and Latham concepts of the design team working together. And certainly, I think through this technology, it affords professionals that opportunity to resolve a lot of issues, as was mentioned in the presentation, at the model scale before you even get on to the job site. And that can reduce a lot of tension, stress, and certainly unnecessary costs when it comes to the job site. So I think this is some really exciting technology that I hope, as it becomes obviously more the norm in the industry and industries, that we will look forward to utilizing in the near future. So I'm conscious of everybody's time. There is one last question I will ask your indulgence on, since it's from a civil structural standpoint, which we really didn't get the questions earlier, but I will crave your indulgence just for this last one. And I'm going to combine the question from Justin Leslie and from Josh Ferguson. And is speaking to when it comes to modeling in reinforced concrete structures, does the software capture all of the bar shapes in a rebar schedule accurately and with the concrete cover? And then the next one is saying, as someone who uses CAD a lot to do rebar detailing, would you say that using Revit is a very similar experience, or would it be considered a major learning curve? So if you wanted to shed some light quickly on that so that we can close.
Yeah, Adam would probably talk to this a little bit more detail, but really quickly from me, there's Revit Civils, and that allows you to the efficiency that Revit architecture allows you. So you can quickly model families, insert families of reinforced bar schedules into your slab, so that, again, that's a very intelligent slab for the QS to take off, because he'd be able to instantly have the tonnage of steel in your slab, and obviously placed at the centers and at the sizes that the engineer has designed. Adam, anything else to add to that?
I suppose from my experience in Ireland, I'd say it's probably 50-50. Some engineers just model a slab and apply a rate or a weight of steel to that slab without actually modeling rebar, and the rebar is often just drafted up in 2D. The schedule is often just drafted up in 2D afterwards. The other times, I suppose it's about what you want to put into it. So yes, you can create rebar families that have the bends and the ties and stuff already. So, and they're parametric, so you can just increase the length of them as you need to. But it's about you placing them yourself. You can create a slab family, or you can create that will have rebar in it that will move and adjust as you increase the size of the slab. So that the more proficient you become in using Revit or any BIM software, the more flexible it will be, and the more you'll be able to do with it. So like it's kind of limitless as to what you can do and how the efficiencies that you can get from software, but it does take obviously a bit of time and a bit of training.
Thank you so very much. So as we close tonight's session, I just want to remind our Barbados Association of Professional Engineering members, all persons who have joined tonight, your information will be uploaded onto the website for CPD points. All other persons who need CPD certificates can contact our office, and Stacy will be able to help you with that. Stacy also asked me to mention to our members, for our records, we need persons to use their birth name. There is an SG. I have no idea who that person is. So we need your full name to make sure that you can benefit from obtaining the CPD points and having that uploaded. I really want to thank David and his team, especially those who join us from Ireland. I think it's Adam, is it after 11 there or after 10? I can't remember where we are at time.
It is 10 to 1.
10 to 1. So Adam and the guys in Ireland, I really want to thank you so much, and I will crave David's indulgence to let you come in an hour later tomorrow so you can catch back up on your sleep tonight. But we really want to thank the ARGO team for joining us, those in Europe, those here in the Caribbean. And it's really been an exciting presentation and really have shown the power of persons being able to work in different locations and all toward the same goal as it pertains to different projects. And David, thank you for championing this new concept in the Caribbean. And hopefully we have you back in the future to do another presentation. Again, something pertaining to BIM or a project or something of that nature. But thank you so much for agreeing to do this presentation for us this evening.
Very welcome, Vincent. Thanks to you and your colleagues for having us.
Cheers. So I just want to thank all of our members and invited guests who would have joined us this evening for this presentation on BIM. And we would ask that you keep an eye out in the WhatsApp or on the email, depending on how you receive your information for next month's presentation. Thank you so much. And we ask that you have a good week and a good evening. And thank you. Good night.
Good night. Thanks a lot.